the Storykeeper's Library proudly presents
Fairy Tales by Hans Christian Andersen. The Little Mermaid. The Sea King had been a widower for many years, and his old mother kept house for him in the palace at the bottom of the sea. He had 6 beautiful daughters, and the youngest was the most beautiful of them all. Her skin was as clear and delicate as a rose leaf, and her eyes as blue as the deepest sea. But, like all the others, she had no feet, and her body ended in a tail like a fish. At last she reached her 15th birthday. So she said farewell, and rose as lightly as a bubble to the surface of the water. The sun had just set as she raised her head above the waves. The sea was calm, and the air mild and fresh. A large ship with 3 masts lay becalmed on the water, with only 1 sail set, for not a breeze stirred, and the sailors sat idle on deck or amongst the rigging. There was music and song on board, and, as darkness came on, 100 colored lanterns were lighted, as if the flags of all nations waved in the air. The little mermaid swam close to the cabin windows, and now and then, as the waves lifted her up, she could look in through clear glass window panes and see a number of well-dressed people within. Among them was a young prince, the most beautiful of all, with large black eyes. He was 16 years of age, and his birthday was being kept with much rejoicing. The sailors were dancing on deck, but when the prince came out of the cabin, more than 100 rockets rose in the air, making it as bright as day. The little mermaid was so startled that she dived underwater, and when she again stretched out her head, it appeared as if all the stars of heaven were falling around her. She had never seen such fireworks before. After a while, the sails were quickly unfurled, and the noble ship continued her passage. But soon the waves rose higher, heavy clouds darkened the sky, and lightning appeared in the distance. The waves rose mountains high, as if they would have overtopped the mast. After a while, the sails were unfurled, and the noble ship continued her passage. But soon the waves rose higher, heavy clouds darkened the sky, and lightning appeared in the distance. The waves rose mountains high, as if they would have overtopped the mast. To the little mermaid, this appeared pleasant sport. Not so to the sailors. At length, the ship groaned and creaked. The thick planks gave way under the lashing of the sea as it broke over the deck. The main mast snapped asunder like a reed. The ship lay over on her side, and the water rushed in. The mermaid now perceived that the crew were in danger. Even she herself was obliged to be careful to avoid the beams and planks of the wreck, which lay scattered on the water. At one moment it was so pitch dark that she could not see a single object, but a flash of lightning revealed the whole scene. She could see everyone who had been on board, excepting the prince. When the ship parted, she had seen him sink into the deep waves, and she was glad, for she thought he would now be with her. And then she remembered that human beings could not live in the water, so that when he got down to her father's palace, he would be quite dead. But he must not die. So she dived deeply under the dark waters, rising and falling with the waves, till at length she managed to reach the young prince. She held his head above the water and let the waves drift them where they would. In the morning, the storm had ceased, but of the ship not a single fragment could be seen. The sun rose up red and glowing from the water, and its beams brought back the hue of health to the prince's cheeks. But his eyes remained closed. The mermaid kissed his high, smooth forehead and stroked back his wet hair. Presently they came in sight of land. The sea here formed a little bay, in which the water was quite still but very deep, so she swam with the handsome prince to the beach, which was covered with fine white sand, and there she laid him in the warm sunshine. The little mermaid swam out from the shore and placed herself between some high rocks that rose out of the water. Then she covered her head and neck with the foam of the sea, so that her little face might not be seen, and watched to see what would become of the poor prince. She did not wait long before she saw a young girl approach the spot where he lay. She seemed frightened at first, but only for a moment. Then she fetched a number of people, and the mermaid saw that the prince came to life again, and smiled upon those who stood round him. But to her he sent no smile. He knew not that she had saved him. This made her unhappy, and when he was led into the great building, she dived down sorrowfully into the water and returned to her father's castle. She had always been silent and thoughtful, and now she was more so. "If human beings are not drowned," asked the mermaid, "can they live forever? Do they never die, as we do here in the sea?" "Yes," replied the old lady, "they must also die, and their term of life is even shorter than ours. We sometimes live to 300 years, but when we cease to exist here, we only become the foam on the surface of the water, and we have not even a grave down here of those we love. We have not immortal souls, we shall never live again, but, like the green seaweed, when once it has been cut off, we can never flourish more. Human beings, on the contrary, have a soul which lives forever after the body has been turned to dust. But if a man were to love you so much that you were more to him than his father or mother, and if all his thoughts and all his love were fixed upon you, and the priest placed his right hand in yours, and he promised to be true to you here and hereafter, then his soul would glide into your body, and you would obtain a share in the future happiness of mankind." And then the little mermaid went out from her garden, and took the road to the foaming whirlpools, behind which the sorceress lived. "I know what you want," said the sea witch. "It is very stupid of you, but you shall have your way, and it will bring you to sorrow, my pretty princess. I will prepare a draught for you, with which you must swim to land tomorrow before sunrise, and sit down on the shore and drink it. Your tail will then disappear, and shrink up into what mankind call legs, and you will feel great pain, as if a sword were passing through you. But all who see you will say that you are the prettiest little human being they ever saw. You will still have the same floating gracefulness of movement, and no dancer will ever tread so lightly. But at every step you take, it will feel as if you were treading upon sharp knives, and that the blood must flow, and you must give me your voice." It all happened as the sea witch said. The prince found her on the shore, and took her to the palace. She was very soon arrayed in costly robes of silk and muslin, and was the most beautiful creature in the palace, but she was dumb and could neither speak nor sing. Finally, the prince was going to be married to the princess of a neighboring country. When he arrived there in his ship, the church bells were ringing, and from the high towers sounded a flourish of trumpets, and soldiers with flying colors and glittering bayonets lined the roads through which they passed. The little mermaid kissed his hand, and felt as if her heart were already broken. His wedding morning would bring death to her, and she would change into foam. After the wedding, they all went on board the ship to rest. The little mermaid leaned her white arms on the edge of the vessel and looked towards the east for the first ray of dawn, which was to be her death. She saw her sisters rising out of the flood. "We have given our hair to the witch," said they, "to obtain help for you, that you may not die tonight. She has given us a knife. Here it is. See, it is very sharp. Before the sun rises, you must plunge it into the heart of the prince. When the warm blood falls upon your feet, they will grow together again and form into a fish's tail, and you will once more be a mermaid." The little mermaid drew back the crimson curtain of the couch, and beheld the fair bride resting her head upon the prince's breast. She bent down and kissed his fair brow, then looked at the sky, on which the rosy dawn grew brighter and brighter. Then she glanced at the knife, and again fixed her eyes on the prince. Then she threw the knife into the sea and plunged in herself. When she opened her eyes, she found herself surrounded by beautiful beings like angels. "Where am I?" asked she. "Among the daughters of the air," answered one of them.
Thank you for watching the Story Keepers Library. Please like, comment, and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to be the first to enjoy our latest content.